Minister, thanks so much for being with us here. You've announced recently $20 million over 4 years for winter roads in First Nations in Ontario and Manitoba. Can you tell us a bit more about this announcement?
Yeah, well, I was here in Manitoba today to hold a roundtable on winter roads. In fact, it's the first roundtable of its kind, and we held a similar one in Ontario just last week, really to bring the province, communities, and the federal government together to talk about not just the ongoing challenges of winter road networks, but what to do as we see a warming climate. First Nations are on the front line of climate change, and in fact, many of the leaders, chiefs, and technicians talked in both roundtables about just how fragile these systems are. Obviously, a really big concern for leaders to get goods, materials, even people to communities.
You've also announced that 5 schools in First Nations in Manitoba are going to receive some funding. Can you tell us about those schools, why they were chosen?
Yeah, well, each community, as you know, has different infrastructure priorities, and communities submit plans to the department for what kinds of infrastructure they need, either to build or to renew. Schools is a priority for communities. They often serve not just as education hubs, but as community center hubs, and indeed many communities who have suffered the loss of a school through fire or other kinds of devastation will tell you just how big of a loss that can be. These schools in many cases do extend the education from kindergarten to grade 12 on reserve. So there's a huge bonus to being able to keep children close to home, not having to leave community to pursue, say, secondary high school years. Some schools needed renovations and renewals. Other schools are being built brand new. And this is a great day for communities. I can tell you that some of these announcements with communities are some of the most emotional that I do, because it's not just about the kids of today, it's also about the generations to come.
Minister, next week First Nations leaders will gather in Ottawa for the Special Assembly, and the child welfare will be up for discussion again following the rejection of the $47.8 billion that was being proposed. Is the federal government willing to renegotiate this deal, including possibly increasing that amount of funding?
Well, listen, it is almost $48 billion that's on the table, and it expands it considerably, coverage for things that weren't even first contemplated in the CHRT ruling, including, for example, post-majority care. That's care for children who are aging out of child welfare systems, or older young adults that are needing that extra support. The final settlement agreement was very comprehensive and worked on, as you know, by the litigants over a number of months to make sure that it really reflected the needs and the vision of First Nations leaders across the country. It was super disappointing for everyone to see the loss of this final settlement agreement. I would say that some communities that voted in favor, in particular Anishinaabe Nation, the Chiefs of Ontario, were actually more than disappointed. They were pretty frustrated. I'm looking forward to hearing the resolutions that I know are working their way through AFN. There is one right now that was passed very quickly after that vote that proposes an additional $70 billion. I would say that we are going to have to look at the resolutions coming forward at this assembly and see how we can work together with the goal in mind of supporting good outcomes for kids. As National Chief Cindy Woodhouse said, this is still ripping families and communities apart. Child apprehension is still a huge piece of the grief and suffering of First Nations people, and this deal had a chance to end that. Of course, we want to work with partners, but we want to make sure that we can do this in a realistic and a successful way.
Is there the possibility of doing, separate deals, a deal with Anishinaabe Nation or the Chiefs of Ontario?
Well, listen, they are 2 of the 4 litigants in the case. As you know, this is, very important to them. And so I have had conversations with both chiefs, and I know that they're taking their responsibilities of leader very seriously. And, the Government of Canada is also looking for ways that we can accelerate the work that we're doing on restoring child and family integrity. Listen, C92 was an important piece of that work. I've been signing child welfare agreements across the country with communities that are taking back control over their children and family services. But this agreement actually works on those really important aspects of child and family integrity, for a lack of a better word, namely prevention. And I think that was what I heard when I spoke both with Chief Fiddler and the Chiefs of Ontario, Chief Benedict Abram, about how important the prevention piece of this agreement was to them. You know, the prevention dollars mean that when a family is struggling, there's actually supports within the community to keep that family well supported and well cared for, to ensure that children stay connected to their extended family, and that communities have what they need to increase healthy outcomes. And so, listen, what I will hope is that we can get to a deal where all First Nations children have that reality.
Minister, just quickly here on Jordan's Principle, we hear horror stories daily. The federal government's been ordered by the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal to address the backlog with Jordan's Principle. What's it going to take to fix this critical principle that is life and death for families and children?
Well, absolutely. And we've seen an astronomical increase in the requests for Jordan's Principle. And I would say that's good news, because people are realizing that it's important children get those services that they desperately need, whether it's speech pathology or mental health services, or in some cases just the basic necessities that a child needs to go to school happy and fed. And our goal as a government is to make sure that we continue to abide by the ruling, but also work with communities in ways that are flexible and in ways that actually help them achieve those goals. We've heard the decision of the CHRT. We are working within the department on a number of different ways that we can accelerate requests. I don't think any of us anticipated the growth of demand in this particular program. We're also having conversations with provinces, territories, and indeed even municipal organizations about the responsibility of all partners to make sure that there's equity in the way that we deliver services. And so I would say that we'll continue to support Jordan's Principle. We'll continue to look within our department for efficiencies. And I think, you know, this is an all hands on deck time for Canada. We want all of our children to be successful. We want all of our children to reach their full potential. And the intent behind Jordan's Principle is to make sure there's a mechanism to do exactly that.
Minister, we'll have to leave it there. Appreciate you giving us some of your time.
Thank you so much.